evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening. Welcome to what is today? Easter Sunday, Good Friday, Ash Wednesday. I can't keep track. Welcome to Two and a Half Syrians. I am joined tonight with two very powerful, powerful Trinbagonians, Gary Aboud and Gassan Yosef. Fellas, say all your hellos and let me start the ball rolling.
Thank you, Philip. Hello, Gassan.
Uh, Thank you, Philip. Good evening to the viewers. Hi, Gary. Nice to see you again, even though distance, from a
It
distance.
is always a
Social
pleasure.
distancing.
For real, eh? But it's always a pleasure. I just sharing this on my WhatsApp broadcast. It's always a pleasure to chat with both of you. And Gary, like we were talking off air, the last time you and I had to involve ourselves in a conversation similar to the one we're going to have tonight was after the Anthony Bourdain show, where things came across in the wrong way and it had the impact of separating the Arab community from the rest of Trinidad and Tobago. And that never augurs well. And this nonsense that people want to create a race identity to this idea of a 1%. That have to stop, because that's why I stopped using the term 1% altogether. I use the term contract mafia, because the contract mafia is not a race. The contract mafia is a group of people that use their access to power and manipulate it to their own financial benefit. This could never be about a race. And while it serves some people's agenda to talk about there are some very rich Syrian members of the Syrian community, but it shouldn't, and in my view, the difficulty is it shouldn't paint the rest of the Syrian community with the same brush, because I grew up in, well, I mean, I had to say among some of the poorest Syrians in this country, but fellas like Talat Lakis from his corner shop on Clarence Street in St. James. Talat Lakis shaped my identity, my character, the man that I am today. I used to be in Talat store because Talat store was next to my father's store in St. James. And I just want to say, and I want to be clear about this, my best friend in the world is Paul Samuel, has been for my whole life. He's an ex-Quechua Syrian, if you want to call it that. It shouldn't be about race. And I think we need to debunk that and get that out of the way quick. What is your view on that?
Well, you're speaking my language there because, in the first instance, I don't consider myself a Syrian. I consider myself a Trinidadian of Syrian heritage. And even though my father was born in Syria, we never went back to Syria, and we never had the good fortune of learning the language. But I embrace my heritage, and I'm proud of my heritage, but I find it very difficult when, as a young man, Marshall Montano sang Take Me Back Africa. And as a student, I learned what was considered in modern existential philosophy, what was considered bad faith was wanting to be somewhere where one was not. And that if one wanted to be somewhere, they should go there. So I wrote a letter to the editor, and I got invited to this conference at UE on the identity of the Caribbean man. And everyone in the audience attacked me, except one elderly gentleman who came across and embraced what I had said, that if we are here, we should be here with all our hearts and all of our soul. And the idea of discussing the difficulty of our nation should always be with a patriotic view of being here. And I feel that Gassan would agree with me. So, and you as well, from what you've said in your opening. So, I have very little patience when Ansel Roger or even Jennifer Batiste go in public and make, obviously, I would say, segregationist, discriminatory statements, particularly against successful people of Syrian, Lebanese, or Arabic or Palestinian heritage, without
Would you
qualifying, as you have, with the
but would
contract
you would
mafia.
you would you give way for 1 minute though? And I just want to make a little joke. We call the show Two and a Half Syrians, and I only seen half of Gus. So I want to say Gus is the half for this show.
Just move to your left.
Um, Gus, move to your left a little
Oh,
bit. Yes,
right.
perfect. All of you. I see a copy Keith Rowley's hairstyle for this show.
Yes.
Gary, just so Gus, I'm bringing you in now. But Gary, I want to say this though, I really want your input on this. It doesn't help when members of the community create this 1% agenda.
No, no. Well, you see, you had said it in your opening statement, and I want to repeat it, that 90% of people that I know who are of this same genetic lineage are decent, hardworking families that I feel very, very proud of and very proud to associate with, like Gassan. As far as I know Gassan since I was a teenager, and he was a hustling young man, and he's still hustling. And I have never heard a word said of any shady deal or transaction involving Gassan, as I am sure he has never heard of me. So I feel proud to be invited with Gassan. But many of the, let's say 10% of the society, of all the ethnic groups, the Asians and the Africans and the Indians and the all of the migratory groups that have come here have have rogue elements. And we cannot go about separating our society at a time like this, especially. Maybe after the corona has passed, we could have the leisure of discrimination and attacking and infighting. But right now, we have a critical responsibility as citizens to keep the ship tight so we do not cause our leaders to panic and to make a wrong decision, like many that we feel have been made in the recent past.
Wronger. Let's bring Gus into the
Well,
conversation and then we could tear the
Yes.
whole thing apart. Gus,
Yes. I must say I agree with both of you all. In addition, I want to start by saying I understand this post by the lady is an old post. It's not something new. So somebody brought it back today to cause problems. So I understand it. Second of all, as far as I'm concerned, when Mario said what he said, I did say that he was wrong. I disagreed with him. You did. Gary did. So that I will disagree with with Susie. It's the same way. She cannot talk on my behalf. You know, she have freedom of speech to say what she want, but she not speaking on my behalf or on anybody's behalf. I am when my good friend Ansel Roger spoke, I was against him for the 1% talk. Also, the former prime minister that I was in her government, when she spoke about it, I took a position against that. You see, it's a very dangerous thing because in Trinidad, the idea of 1%, unfortunately, is linked to one ethnic group. That is a minority, and a very small minority, and therefore anybody who have that ethnic group and from that ethnic group could be identified with this 1%. That is a very dangerous thing that could explode into harm to people, innocent people. We need to cut out this talk of 1%. Is 100%. We are 100%. And I want to say something further, Philip. Even if the system produce a 1% as far as what should I say, financial class or whatever you want to call it, it's not the fault of the 1%. It's the system. It's the
all
system
right,
is the problem. Now,
I
if
take
some
what,
people are corrupt, if some people build their empire by ill-gotten, or name them, go after them,
but you
expose
can't.
them.
Gus, you can't. I want to show you what's going on, right? This is why they do this faceless, nameless, lump everybody together and attack them. Trinidad have two laws that prevent you from speaking out about people who are abusing and doing wrong. There is the Sedition Act and there is the Defamation Act. And both of those acts are used very well by the very people who doing the very things that should be exposed. And you see, that's where we end up in the cacada we in now. Because the public cannot say John Brown involved in ill-gotten business. Because John Brown will sue you.
Well, Philip, that's what I'm saying. We have to look at the system. The system we are governed under is not a fair system. It's not a good system. I always say, I said many years ago, our problem, Dr. Rowley is not the problem. Camilla is not the problem. Philip Alexander is not the problem. Gary, I was not the problem. The problem is the system we are governed under. The system we govern under is anti rally freedom of speech. Like the United States, it is anti-minority parties, small parties cannot flourish in this country because there's a monopoly on a political system.
But Chalana Birchwood is now saying on this live video that we Trinbagonians never had a national identity, and I agree with him. It's too easy for us to divide. Every Christmas, us have to talk about this song Chinese Para. And as I ask every race, if they were singing this about your race and denigrating you stereotypically, would you be okay with it? And it's always the answer is no. Why it is, Gary? Gary, why it is, what, 100 years on, we still have forged a national identity. There have been Arabs in this country for over a century. You trying to tell the Chinese people came here. The Chinese people were the first indentured laborers brought to Trinidad and Tobago before the East Indians. Chinese was here first, but Chinese just didn't want to be slaves. They preferred to lie down on the ground and die. And they had to forget about them and go and bring the East Indians and end up with the East Indians and the Fatal Razak and all that drama. We don't even know our history. We don't even care to know our history. We live like gangs. We live like bullies. The bigger the group, the bigger the noise you make, attack everybody else.
Well, I mean,
Gary?
it's difficult. Go ahead, Gassan. Go ahead.
No, I want to say, in short, all of us came here. All of us at one time or the other came here. It's time to stop to say that as though some people have more right than others. Everybody had the same rights. All of us came here. All of us, except for the first people in Arima and in other parts of Trinidad. All of us came here. So it's time to stop this nonsense.
Well, the Hutus
And
and the Tutsis, sorry,
yeah, no,
sorry.
if you want to talk about this ethnic group and per capita they are better off, but so is the world. Wherever immigrants, they tend to do better than the indigenous people. If you go Panama, to go to the free zone in Panama, is only Indian people in charge and owners. That's all. You go in the States, the immigrants tend to do better than the original people. That's how it is all over the world. And life is not fair.
Actually,
Look, I am listening tonight on TV, and they are saying the Afro-American are suffering more from the COVID than the white people because of their financial status, because of their economic status. They tend to have more underlying symptoms, sickness, and therefore they're suffering more now
And
in the
yet,
United States
what
of
is
America.
ironic is the continent of Africa collectively has the least amount of COVID-19 coronavirus cases of any region of the planet. The whole of
Well,
Africa don't have 300
in
cases.
general, the poor countries are holding up better to the COVID than the rich
Not
people,
poor.
the rich
It's
countries.
not poor. It's not about poor. It's about the temperature. It's the hot countries doing better.
I
The
tend to agree.
hot countries.
I put that on my Facebook. I think that's the reason why in Trinidad we don't have really a explosion of
We won't
COVID-19
get an
here.
explosion. If
We
it
don't.
wasn't for that cruise, Trinidad have 50 cases and 2 deaths.
That's right.
Today I listened to the report. The majority of the people in Kuva and Kora who not critical because of underlying conditions, them in recovery and them getting ready to come out. We're not gonna get no spike, we're not gonna get no explosion. This is going to come to an end now, and we have to start preparing for that and transition back into in this country. Gary.
I agree with that. For the past 36 hours, we didn't have a new case, thank God. And according to CMO, I have been listening to his press conference. I think I checked 94 patients who are in Cora and in Cuba. They are doing very well. And the United
Doing
States
well.
and the New York protocol of treatment, they will be out, they will not be in. My son is a doctor practicing in New York. He lives in New York and he practices in Westchester, a county in New York State. And those people will have been out. Look at that Chris Como. Look how he's suffering. You could see it. He has pneumonia. You show you the X-ray. Yet he's home. But here
I
we
want to
have
make a couple
everybody
of points.
inside.
Gus, I
Go
want to
ahead.
make a couple of points. The first thing is
Sure.
that over the past couple of hundred years, there have been large scale, I think genocide is the correct word. We saw it happen in Germany most recently with the Hutus and the Tutsis. I forget the nation, where there were
Rwanda.
clear warning. In
Rwanda.
where?
Rwanda.
Rwanda. Right. And we have had hate crimes in England, in India, in the USA. It's not as rare as you think it is. Hate crimes are real. So when people use racist terminology or terminology to brand one ethnicity or another, it becomes a very dangerous road to walk down. Now, my bloodline makes me a serious minority in Trinidad. The fact that I've worked since I was 13 years old, I had my first job, and like you and Gassan and many other citizens of all ethnicities, I have built the little I have on sacrifice, on being smart, on having a vision, taking a chance, but most of all, on creating something of excellence that somebody else would want, would consume, would buy. Now, this whole question that often on the UNC websites, you see it with Devon Marad very regularly, where he would always talk about the 1%. It needs to be put to sleep because it is being abused. I'll give you an example. The security companies, one of them is owned by someone of Arabian descent. One is Afro-owned, two are Indo-owned. So the question of employing security companies to assist the police and the regiment is being branded as a 1% issue.
Wait. The other pump your brakes on this one point. And I'm saying this to you that the other three companies, that's part of the four companies, they're there to make up numbers and to provide a smoke screen. This was a contract given to Amalgamated Security. The other three companies together, if they add up everything they own, they're not one division of Amalgamated. This was given to Amalgamated Security, sole select without tender. And that has to be the problem for a lot of people in this country, Gary.
I agree with that, and I'm not saying that you're wrong about the data, but there are ways that you could approach it rather than shooting down an entire ethnicity. There may be only 15 or 20,000 people of Arabic descent, and even though they may have certain cultural differences, there are more similarities that we share than differences that we don't share. So we should always be embracing each other. I look at the European countries where this question of segregation and discrimination doesn't exist in the same way. I lived in Canada at a time when there were different views, the more liberal approach of embracing and the more conservative approach of rejecting. And the world has gone the way of accepting each other and building on each other's strengths. Now, I just want to say that Russell Martineau is a hero to me. And he's a multi-millionaire Afro-Trinidadian senior counsel that has done great work in his life. So has Carl Hudson Phillips. Now, I don't refer to them as Africans, neither do I refer to them as one percenters. They are citizens. So why should I be treated any differently than I treat them? Dr. Henry, he's one of the most brilliant open heart surgeons in Trinidad and probably owns a string of buildings and a string of bank accounts as he should. He is the best, as far as I know, in terms of heart surgery and heart care. And he's a black man, a black Trinidad man. I'm proud
Yeah,
of
but
that. I
Gary, I can tell you a black man invented the traffic light, a black woman invented liquid paper. We don't have to go down this road. Trinidad is in Trinidad, they invented the television. The cure for rabies was found in
exactly,
Trinidad and Tobago. I know all
exactly.
of this, and I want to say to you, I don't want to dwell too much on this, and I want to tell you, our problem is we've never healed our history. Our problem is we've never
Well,
healed our history. We've had massa treatment. where the lighter your skin, the redder the child, the more chance they have of living inside the house opposed to the yard. And then we had the colonial experience where the whiter your skin, the greater your access to opportunities. And we've never shaken that off. We've never leveled the play field. We've never dealt from a position of equity. We talk equality, and we have no idea what
Right.
that means.
Well, when the Prime Minister called me a jackass in my WhatsApp, because I sent him a letter to the
I
editor
call
where
him a jackass. I call him a
because
jackass first.
they were drinking champagne that they spent $89 million to change the roof of the president's house. And they didn't rebuild the building, just the roof, from a wooden roof to a steel roof. I was invited by somebody with Pep to join them to go to the Red House for the opening of the Red House. And so I went. And I met and mixed with plenty of people in the PEP, and I never felt a feeling of segregation, discrimination, isolation. So I don't think, from my limited exposure to PEP supporters, that they have come into the group with these type of bias. I know some of them, some of the people who were there, I knew them outside of the PEP, and I admire them and I enjoy their company as friends, as FFOS members and volunteers. But there's a wide group of people who buy into the segregation talk and who, for instance, don't recognize that, for instance, Adams Bakery has brought something of excellence to the marketplace. Aoli, both of them owned by Aboods. They have young people that have gone to school and learned and trained and had a dream and had an idea. And that spirit should not cut down and should be upheld by all citizens. They
All
should be
right.
given.
All right. And I want to say to you, and you have every right to list and celebrate. But by the same token, there seems to be an unlevel play field. This afternoon, I was driving back from the east, and I had to drive through the confusion that takes place in the vicinity of Grand Bazaar because Grand Bazaar was built on the highway reserve and destroyed any chance of us doing a proper north-south intersection there. And that was because the owner of Grand Bazaar, the Samga group of companies, got an advantage with the government for whatever reason. For whatever reason, and to the absolute poor who watch Goodwood Park and Laventille Hill grow together and see one excel and the other suffer. We live in a country where people, instead of looking at what is the mechanisms that operate the economy to make sure that everybody have the same chance, the same hope, the same opportunity, we denigrate people based on race because that's all we
Yeah.
have left to play with.
Well, Francis
Okay.
Pravat, Johnny O'Halloran, and Mervyn D'Souza. I grew up in Goodwood Park. Our house was the second house ever built there. It was a forest, an estate. And the three P&M bigwigs lived up there. They moved up there in the 6 days. So it's not an ethnic bias, it's a class bias. And even a class bias, as Karl Marx taught us, is doomed to failure. You cannot overcome by segregating and separating and persecuting.
Exactly. Exactly. A rising tide lifts all boats, Gary. We've
All
never had a
boats.
government. We've never had a government come into office in this country, possibly with the first 2 years of the NAR, but even that collapsed in a heap of race. We've
But
never
Philip,
really,
instead of pointing out that Tony Sabga and his group got an approval that Town and Country should not have given on the location where they built too close to the highway, which I remember it at the time. Town and Country are making asinine decisions every day, not with me, unfortunately, because I have been very open about criticizing Town and Country. I cannot get
likewise.
anything approved.
Gary,
I am persecuted.
every time one of my employees go into any state authority and they find out that the employee is representing Philip Alexander, they
You
have
get
to
nothing.
dot I and cross T. You're not
Yes.
getting away because
Okay.
you're sitting down there quiet as a
Yeah,
mayor
I
of
want to say
Arima.
something. Yeah,
So let me
I
finish
want
this
to take
point, Gassan.
example from
Uh, let, Ga-
the first point I want to make is that, and we need to keep that in mind for historical reasons, that the Arab community in Trinidad consists of about 95% Christians and probably 5% Muslims. But in the Middle East, where they come from, the Muslims are 90% and the Christians are 10%. Why is that? There's some kind of discrimination there that made these people migrate. So they were being discriminated against. And up to now, the constitutions in those countries discriminate against the Christians in those countries. I just want to keep that in mind as a, just to know why we end up here.
I want to let
Now,
Gary.
I want to go.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go to the Grand Bazaar matter. Let us say, for argument's sake, I don't know this, what you are saying, Philip. Let us say that's a fact. Why that is only Tony Sagwa fault alone? As he said, town and country, the government, the PNM government built HD houses in what you call it, in swamps, in water retention areas. That caused so much problems.
But
And the
a
Prime
Also,
Minister
Syrian name
himself
called
was
it
the
that.
minister.
That
in
was,
Oropun,
yeah, but Gus,
in
Gary,
Greenvale.
Gus Greenvale was a Syrian. Greenvale was Rahal.
Okay,
It's John
listen to
Rahal
me. What
project.
about Oropun? Oropun was not Rahal. Oropun was
I
government
don't
land,
know
not
that.
so?
Okay, but listen, I am not trying to make this a Syrian issue, you know. I'm just saying to you
No.
that because
If you address corruption, if there's corruption, you have to talk about that and name the people. But you cannot just blame one person and there's another side to it.
you
That's all I'm
see,
saying.
you're not wrong. But in our situation, though, a problem that we have, Gary, I'm coming back to you to finish your point there. But a problem that we have is this. Because you were absolutely correct when you said our systems of government fail us. I say nothing works in this country. Nothing
That's
works. So
that.
when you say that you're not wrong, but to the people who feel like other people get away with murder, they hold them in mind and it becomes a legend and it takes up a life of its own. That's where a lot of this came from. Gary, finish your point that you wanted to make earlier now.
Well, it's two things. One is that I met Tony Sabga in my life a few times, and I have great admiration for him and for what he has accomplished. Because when I was a very young man, he invested $26 million to purchase the majority shares in a company called McInerney Allstons, which in 1986 couldn't hold its place. And
It
in
was
those
it was
days,
about to fall. It was about to fall.
yes,
Okay,
in
both
86,
of you, what was Tony Sabga's business before buying McInerney Alston's group of companies?
it was the Answer Group. He had a furniture and
He
white
had
goods.
console, what you call it, he had a fact, and he had standard and milk. What you call the milk?
Standards, he was a middle distributor. Was it Kerrygold? Claymore Kerrygold or one of them?
No,
Standard?
Kerrygold is not it. No, Frico. Was it Frico? Was that Kerrygold is
Okay, so
the
milk
Moutes.
distribution and furniture, right? Was his business. I'm not getting into this,
Yeah.
but you have to see how it looks. Because we have no transparency in this country, and at that time, the recession of the 80s, the country was going down a hole, similar to the hole we're in now, but there was nobody to say that the deal was done transparently. We have no source of funds, documents, so we don't know nothing. And Trinidadians, because a couple people have found themselves involved in criminal enterprise, Trinities, because I want to tell you, and that's why I had to be cautious when I talk, because I have seen people paint me with the same brush as they want to paint other people. I see people hear a story and pass the story on. I just had to take, like all of you, like everybody, I had to take that in my everyday and just pretend that that doesn't upset
Philip,
or hurt.
Philip, where there's smoke, there's fire. The only smoke that I have ever heard with Tony Sabga is that when his editors of The Guardian criticized Basdio Pandey for drinking scotch on a Sunday morning with one of the financiers of the UNC, who was proposing to become a shareholder in a power generation deal in Trinidad. You might recall, Tony Sabga called and cussed up the editor, and the editor recorded it, and it went viral. And that at that point in my life, the society found something on Tony Sabga, that he was a loudmouth and he used bad language and very offensive language to his editors. I'm conceding that. But other than that, there's never been a spark in the reputation of Tony Sabga's integrity. I cannot, at this point, make any claim about a
But
$26
it's not
million
about Tony
purchase.
Sabga, and we dwell in. No, we dwell in on that, and I don't even want to go into Tony Sabga business. I
Well,
don't want
well,
to go into how
Let's move on
people.
from that.
I don't want to go into how people get their business, because Gary, that will become a subjective argument, and none of the if the people are not here to defend themselves, are not going down that road. But
but
I'm
Stuart,
just
let's talk
saying.
I
about
agree.
with the Butch Stewarts of the Caribbean. These are people who have come up within the ranks, and for whether, according to Gassan, they are blessed or they are brilliant, or according to me, that they bring some kind of excellence to the table. My simple point is that we should embrace them and celebrate them because they are heroes. Like a 400-meter sprinter that brings home a gold medal, these guys bring home medals for all of us. And
Okay, but Gary, we
after
have
the
a
coup,
responsibility.
I witnessed during the coup when buildings burnt, spectators clapped when the walls fell down. And I said, look, such fools. What we are losing belongs to everyone.
Yeah, but Gary, again, we have a responsibility to all of Trinidad and Tobago, to the Syrian community, the
Yes.
black community, the Indian community. We have a responsibility. The three of us here, it falls to us tonight to heal this bullshit and tell people, look, like with every race and with every grouping in the country, there will be people who do wrong. Do not label the whole community, because there are people who are criminals and engaged in corruption and white collar crime. And I want to be able to say
That's
that
my
clear.
mantra. That is my mantra. That is my mantra. There's good and bad everywhere and by every in every community and
Boss
every
them,
country, in every village, in every town, and
Exactly.
they're
in
bad in
every
the
race.
So
church, they're
a
bad in the
different
church,
point.
they're bad in the temple, they're bad in the mosque. I don't want to put names and faces. I think we went too far down that road. But I just want to
And that's
say,
why, Philip, that's why I'm saying, but the danger, there's an extra danger in Trinidad with a small community of 5 to 10,000 people being lumped up with the 1%, as though they are the 1%. You know, you are
yeah, but
labeling that
yeah,
as
but
that is a very dangerous
but it
road
was a dangerous
we going
position when Anthony Boudin interviewed the people in that Goodwood Park house.
uh,
Trinidad never forgot the arrogance of those statements. Trinidadians
and
never
in all
forgot.
fairness, and in all fairness to Trinidad and Tobago, when Ansel Rouget, my good friend, called for boycott, nobody took him on. Agari, nobody took him on.
Well, I took him on. I
No,
made
nobody.
comment
The
about
people
it.
did not take with the boycott. I
You know.
took him on personally, but the people did not listen to him.
But
It was
Gary,
a total failure.
when you look at Faris Al Rawi fronting the Nahus family, getting 1 and 3 Alexandra Place rented to the state at higher per square foot contracts than any other building renter in the country, it looks bad, it reads bad, it looks like people are using their advantages. And you see you laughing at that. But
No, I
it
went to
looks
a
bad.
wedding. I went to a 60th birthday party, and a whole string of relatives of of the family were there. And I know these people growing up fishing and what, but I didn't get very many hellos. But I totally agree with what you're saying. But you see, the problem is not a Faris or Rory problem or a Nahu's problem. The problem is the tendering process of how governments spends. And while we are talking all this talk, the acquisition, what they call the act, the, the,
Procurement
the,
Act.
the procurement act is still not functional. So they just
Boss,
took
Up to now.
1.5
boss,
they took
we have
1.5
laws.
billion.
We
Huh?
have laws, business laws approved in the parliament that's sitting down 15 years waiting to be proclaimed. The
This
Procurement
we
Act is done. The Procurement Act is ready.
I hope we could close this discussion, this part of the discussion, with this. I want to say, I will say, and I will concede, there's a group of people in Trinidad, high class people, that have access to any cabinet that in this country is in power, whether PNM or UNC or anybody else. The same group, the same
Yeah,
group of people.
But
yeah.
you
Because
I
can't
again,
know.
talk.
not only pressure,
You
because
can't
campaign
talk.
finance reform, because we have
You
no
can't
campaign
talk
finance
1%.
reform, because when they give the money and they get the pound of flesh for the money they give,
And you can't
and
talk
they give both,
1% and see
and they
all the
give
road
both.
pavers. How much money goes to the road pavers every year? Gary Aboud, Gus, you are mayor. We have roads in this country built by the Americans in World War II that's still standing today, but we have contractors in Trinidad paving road that don't last 3 years.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
When we
Talking
started,
about this, I
when
just
we
want,
start,
about 20 years ago, I used to go and exercise in Mount Catherine, up all the way up to the Globe, the new one. And Stephen used to be riding bicycle. Stephen Gary brother. And he used to give me some water to drink. He used to ride up and down. I used to go up there. And those roads were built by the Americans. And they built them in a way that the road tilted towards the hill, not on the other side, with drainage. Those roads up to now, they're still there. And I remember that. They tilted that the water don't run down the hill. It run
But
against the hill. So
Gary,
well
you wanted to say something?
designed.
since
Go ahead, Gary.
2001, the procurement legislation has been bandied about Parliament. It's like the Environmental Management Act, the water pollution rules, which many of you might
Campaign
know.
finance.
Can be constitutional reform. I mean,
I
I'm not
sat with
blowing
the
a horn.
chairman of the EBC. I sat with the chairman of the EBC before the 2015 election. He told me then that they had all the rules and they had all the regulations, and it was just up to Parliament. And that still, look, a whole 6, 7 years passed, and we still can't fix something as simple as campaign finance where electioneering is concerned. And I tell them, just make one rule, make one rule. If you limit that is 100,000 per candidate for the campaign, and they spend $101,000, nullify the candidacy, disqualify them. And that's the one thing you don't want to lose. So you will
We
give
will
them a
never
bacon.
see it.
But
I,
listen,
I like
Gary,
blowing a horn.
if men like you were sitting in the parliament, I would see it because you said just now, you just said that the problem is the procurement system and the fact that people could take advantage, but you not taking advantage and Gus not taking advantage and I am not taking advantage. People who are using their life and putting their life and their character and their reputation on the line to fight for a better Trinidad and Tobago. It is not everybody in Trinidad and Tobago is corrupt. But the problem with Trinidad and Tobago is the corrupt people are very successful and they do a good job of seizing and holding government so that they could further their own corrupt ends.
I agree, Philip. But if you shoot those corrupt ones, you'll have 100 more coming up. You'll have 10 times more come. You have to deal with the system.
After fixing it, yeah,
Right. You have to deal with the system.
you have to deal with the system. Fellas, we could shift gears. People want to know about COVID-19. We could talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Well, I want to say for COVID-19 that today in United States, 2,000 people died in one day. And whether you say that's because of climatic change, I'm very wary to accept that we are fortunate and we are off the hook because it is now known that the virus that Italy had is not the same strain as the US and not the same strain as Wuhan.
Who
I
said
also
so?
want they
Who
have
said so?
the virus is mutating. I saw that, yeah man.
Gary, there was a lot of talk outside there. I want to tell you why Italy went so bad. Italy is a direct connection to Wuhan. The people who want to buy Prado and Gucci and them brands don't want a made in China label. So they brought Chinese sweatshops to Italy. 300,000 Chinese workers live in northern Italy making handbags and shoes.
I believe I believe the high travel. That's why the first world is suffering more than the third world because of the high travel, and probably winter and weather have something to do with it, and maybe diet and lifestyle. But coming back to Trinidad, Trinidad really now, as it stands, for the past 36 hours, we didn't have a new case. Thank God for that. But
Amen.
according to the CMO, we have 98 cases, 107, 8 died, God bless their soul, rest in peace. So we have 99. After the 99, he said 94 are doing very well. So we only dealing with 5 serious cases in Trinidad.
Now,
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 I have no problem in doing the measures they are doing. But my question is, what is the underpinning reasons on 2 days ago when you had no case or one case to extend the shutdown from the 15th till the end of the month? You had no spikes. You had no reason. Why you did it to the 15th?
because they're getting
Why now
away
you
with
extend
martial
it till the end
law.
of the month?
They're getting away with martial law. We are in a state of emergency without declaring a state of emergency. They can do what they want. They shut down your
And
business
you know,
and they
why
tell
do
you
you want
you
to
can't
declare a
open
state of
back your business.
emergency? It is in the papers, Charlotte Street. Business people have been raided.
No,
Why
but
is
you
not
see
a state of
again, Baker
emergency?
is the one raided. There
Why
were
you want to
four
bring? Why
break-ins.
you bringing?
There were
Why you
four
bringing?
break-ins.
Why you
Because
bringing
there were
Winston Church,
private security
Winston,
companies that cannot do anything? Private security
Gus,
Win-
company. If I see me in the road, you can't do me anything. Why you bringing that? Why you didn't
let
bring the
me
regiment? You have
debunk this
4,000-5,000
idea because
regiment.
that those four places that were broken into, that become a thing on Facebook that that town being looted. Town not being looted. There were four break-ins.
Not
One of
yet.
them was
Oh,
a hardware yard. Okay, they thief bricks and sand. And I want to say it's not good, don't thief nothing. But we're not looting and it's not falling apart. And they could have easily put some police barricades and close the grid that is Port of Spain until we open back.
I want to say something,
and
guys.
sure.
Gaston, let me say something. When we spoke with Philip the last time, we spoke on the corona, and from the very beginning in January, when FFOS wrote about it, we called for certain things, and some of those things we've had, the government must have heard, or somebody must have heard and said, it made some sense to them. But I want to say certain things again tonight. One is that if it is that we are under attack and we are facing a war, then this is a time for nationalist, patriotic solidarity. And I think it would be a great advantage to the government if they convened a special corona cabinet. You see, the planning of the corona is being done in an isolated vacuum where most of the mines in Trinidad are locked out. So I'm not saying that it should include one party and not another party, but we should have a representative committee that should be free to talk about the issue with their
Gary, they are
constituency.
so opposed to that they're not convening the parliament. They spent $500 million on the Red House. You trying to tell me in that $500 million you spent setting back up parliament in the Red House, you didn't put facilities for off-site meeting? So you can look at the show we're doing tonight. Within 48 hours of the lockdown, the Progressive Empowerment Party took PEP Media online. You may not know this, but we have a show every morning between 8 and 10 called Pep Talks in the morning, and it is guest driven. We do this plain talk show. We have the best guests. Tomorrow night, I am actually interviewing Fazil Mohammed. The tables turned, the interviewer being interviewed. But how is it that the prime minister, who has responsibility under the constitution to call the parliament to order over this matter, not doing it? How come they can't sit down? We have a meeting, the Progressive
Well,
Empowerment Party. I don't want to make this political, but we use an app called Zoom, and twice a week we have 50 people in a meeting. Why the 41 people in the parliament can't have a Zoom meeting and the speaker of the house chair the meeting?
well, the Prime Minister,
The prime minister is running the country by press conference. When you made a suggestion just now, not only politicians, this was a role for all of the brightest minds in Trinidad and Tobago. That we see on TV, That's not the brightest minds. We've not had business people who are, and I'm not talking about the very wealthy. I nearly use the word 1%. I am not talking about the very wealthy. I am talking about, and we have to stop judging the country by how well rich people doing. We have to watch and see how the worst off that level, how they're doing, because how they're doing is how the country doing. We cannot be happy and successful while a majority of our, even a minority of our people suffering. We've not had that approach. When Gus said just now, what he was talking about, that's business interest. It's sectarian, but that sectarian interest must be heard. Everybody who has a voice in the country should be consulted. You just said, Gus just said, we have no new cases. The cases that we have, getting better and they're going to come out. Let us stop pretending that Trinidad and Tobago is on fire.
Let me give you an example how they're making ad hoc decisions. They're not bouncing it off anybody. How could you make a press conference, the Minister of Finance on Monday, Colum Imber, and one of the reporters asked him, what about giving a deferral, a grace period for the payment of the taxes that due this month, 25th due VAT, and the end of the month is the annual income tax. He said, no, 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 we can't do that. We need the money to pay the people. But you closed me down. You closed me down since the end of March. I cannot go to my office. The place closed. And you are telling me I have to pay you VAT, but I don't have the figures at hand. I have to go to the office. My people have to check the figures. How am I to pay you VAT if you close me down? How can I pay you if my accountant is closed down? They have not given me the final figures for my annual income tax. How am I to pay you by 30th of April while you close me and you close them down? I mean, how is that?
Gary was the first person to raise that issue when Colin put out that release. Gary had a weigh in on that.
I mean,
Well,
what is this?
it's a lot more than just the VAT, because if the Prime Minister and his war cabinet have the authority to shut down the country, then don't they have the authority to tell the banks to back off? After the coup, the banks didn't do anything to help the country. It is the government who had to subsidize the interest of the banks so that the people who had financial burdens could rebuild. Now we have a situation where every jack is affected. This is not just in a city. We are facing a potential economic catastrophe, and yet landlords are still collecting rent. The government is paying 500, $600 million a month in rent, a month, for buildings that are dormant and laid to waste. Tenants, people that are middle class people, are paying two, three, four, $5,000 a month, and they have no job, most of them no income, or 1,500 subsidy, which isn't even enough to cover the rent. So we propose that the government should urgently pressure the banks that all interest on all loans and mortgages, not deferred, postponed. So if
But
we
the
shut
banks
down,
can't do
Suspended.
that. The
Let me
banks
tell you
cannot
this.
do that. No, not even suspended. I want to tell both of you something. All the businesses, and especially the big businesses that depend on Trinidad and Tobago to live, now is the time to give something back. You see that 3 months you're asking for, defer the interest completely across the board. Banks making
across the board,
billions in this
Let me
country.
say. Let me
But
say
the
this.
only way that's going to happen is if the government sets that tone. And the
But
government
that's
could
what I
set
say.
that tone.
Exactly. For instance, the government closed me down for a month. They closed me down. They tell me I have to close, I close. But the bank telling me, listen, we'll give you a chance, we'll defer the payment, but the interest is running. So I am paying interest now while I am closed. I am a small commercial landlord. My tenants every day, I could show you emails every day coming asking me for not to pay the month, and I cannot charge them. How could I charge them if they're not open? But yet the bank charging me interest. Now you tell me to close down, and when they ask about the bank, say no, no, that is the bank business. I can't tell the bank anything. You cannot tell the bank anything, but you could close me down. How is that fair?
Yes.
How is that right?
Gus, the government has to defer the taxes. The government has to defer the taxes. I want to say it a third time. The government has to defer the
They
taxes.
have to
And when
they
they
have to give me a grace period the same time they close me down,
no,
comparable with the time they
no, no,
close me
no.
down.
40% of our budget is direct taxation of the people. Come on. It is time for us to treat the country. If you say that you're going to shut the country down from the top down. We pay in a parliament, we pay in a cabinet, we pay in a government hundreds of millions of dollars for what? Right now, we don't need that. And all of them
All
should
the
have taken
ministers
a
who not doing anything and they
75%.
getting paid,
They should have taken a 75% pay cut. What we
and
paying
they
this
getting paid.
fool who wanted to build the bridge in the stage in the sea? What's his name? Lovell Francis. What we paying him a salary for right now? Take that money and
to
buy
push to push to
ventilators.
push restock all the time. To push restock. That's it. And
Well,
That's
what
it.
I'm saying,
So,
at this time where they say we import 80% of our food, where is the Minister of Agriculture in this? I've not seen him. He missing in action.
Clarence Rambarat's job was to plant a hedge outside Palisade House.
Why don't
Gary,
you?
why
Why
we
don't
don't
they?
have a
Why don't they
food
take CPEP
policy?
and URP and tell them to go and plant food? So in 2 months we
The
can have food
200
to eat.
prisoners they want to let out of the jail, you have no work for them, they have nowhere to go. Put them to work on that.
well, at a time like this, I wish Tony Sabga was still alive because somebody like him, I would trust to come up with a stimulus package to get our economy back on the road because some experts are saying it could take years to get our economy back on the road. And what that will mean is hardship for hundreds of thousands.
Gary,
And
it
that's
did
not
not
something.
take years. It did not take years to recover from the housing bubble burst of 2008, and it won't take years. I'll tell you why. The credit has been paused, the consumption has been paused. There are two vacuums competing with each other. All you need is the will and a government that understands what you're trying to do right now is to pause the country for COVID-19 to pass through cool. You take responsibility for the workers in the country, you pay them their salaries. Pay the small man their salaries so that when you open back your business in 2 months, your people could come to work normal, because that's what we need. We need your business. This is what the IMF said. The IMF said we need right after COVID-19 for everybody who owns a business to be able to open their business and turn the lights off and get back to work. After 2008, that Congress sat for nearly a week. You know what they sat for? They sat trying to put credit into the economy. And that's what we need. We need a government that understand that its job, as soon as COVID-19 done and we open back, put credit in the economy. Don't come now to try and take out taxation when people, your business shut down and you can't work and you looking to give money to your employees to keep them surviving. So after the shutdown done, you can bring them back out to work. That's madness.
The backbone of any economy is the small business. What this government is doing and addressing the problems in the small business. The small business, Gary will tell you, for the past 5, 6 years, they are suffering except for very few. They are suffering, they're barely making it. It's the big boys making the money. It's the banks, conglomerate making the billions of dollars, not the small business. And you squeezing them more, you close them down, and you're not giving them a chance to survive.
Well, I am not a financial planner or an economics expert. I just have basic common sense. But I would feel a lot more comfortable if we could pull together some of the best, most accomplished minds to sit and represent the nation, not politicians, not from the pool of political cronies that run after the parties in a colored T-shirt. I'm talking about the best minds, the best accomplished minds in business, in trade, in the university level, who have a clear understanding of these macro and micro effects as how they intertwine, to come up with stimulus packages for the Ministry of Agriculture, stimulus packages for the Ministry of Energy, stimulus packages for normal trade, for those
You
who
want
are
to interrupt?
displaced.
I
Well,
don't want
well,
to
you see,
interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you, but why would you wait for a pandemic to have a stimulus package? You're in government 4.5 years now, and you don't have a food policy.
well, in my respectful view, Philip,
They have no policy storm about this thing from the whole society. The ordinary people have confidence in. Our people have no confidence in the politicians anymore.
Because they didn't believe this was a serious thing. I think that they still know it's not a serious thing. They did some things that allowed the pandemic to reach Trinidad shores. I don't know if it's intentionally. We passed legal notice number 34, January 31st, 2020, that said a devastating pandemic was heading our way, and then we partied for the next 6 weeks. We didn't order a ventilator. We didn't shut down the nation's borders. We brought
That's right.
50,000 people in for carnival.
And
So
let me tell you, all their decisions are political. They didn't want to stop Carnival because that will cost them money. Like, for instance, now, this extension or closing down of the food places is because they didn't want to allow the double brand to open. So they closed down KFC. That was a
you hear they
political
vandalize the
decision.
Doubles man place? You hear that they
That, that,
vandalize the
that,
Doubles man?
that was a political decision. What they're banking on now, I believe, is that they will shut down the country till the end of April. The COVID will go away, they figure out, and then they will hold election saying, see, we save your life. You are alive. Vote for
But
me.
I have very strong opinions, and I've expressed strong opinions when the question of closing down all the doubles, the street food, but allowing KFC and rituals and the
And this
so-called
is what brings us
1%.
back to the 1% thing. Because of
Right.
those actions, and especially because Christian Boutte was on the COVID-19 task force, it looked like he recommended himself to himself.
Well, but
But it looked like, but you don't know. It's the government who did it.
what
It
the
doesn't
government,
matter. It doesn't matter because appearances are reality in politics, and you know that, Gus. That's why you
Yes,
shave your
but
head
who
bald.
should
You
pay the price? Is
see
the government
bald-headed
should
men
pay the
winning
price.
elections, you're coming out for them.
You have to hold the government responsible. You have
Absolutely.
to.
Nobody's saying no, but you create a task force. You put a man to head the task force who own KFC, and all of a sudden everything shut down but KFC. Come on. And Gary bring back out his hammer.
this is my judge's hammer. I only use this in court.
Well, you
But
you borrow that from John James. You borrow that from Judge James.
so let me add something. I think the politicians made a mistake when they shut down street food. They omitted to mention that the World Health Organization recommends that as one of the first responses is to shut down all street food vending. Secondly, and I only discovered this tonight because up until tonight, I took a very strong position about the discrimination against all our different street foods, the oyster vendors, the doubles vendors, because I'm a regular doubles eater. And what I found out is that all the restaurants in Trinidad have to have a restaurant license. And once you get a restaurant license, it comes with obligations to maintain certain levels of hygiene. Why I mention this is because I suffered with hepatitis C. And at the time that I was a victim of hepatitis C, Professor Bartholomew published that in Trinidad and Tobago, over 60% of all citizens have had some degree of hepatitis C. It is the highest level of hepatitis C measured in a human population on the planet. That was 15 years ago when he did his study. And the reason why he proposed that this was occurring is because of the consumption of doubles. Hepatitis C is spread, according to him, anal to oral. And I certainly don't
But
put, I don't
but
go in
didn't
close
Mervyn
proximity
Assam
to
when he
anal
was
with
Minister
this.
of Trade, didn't I'll come back to that one. But
No,
when
no, no,
Mervyn
no,
Assam was Minister of Trade, didn't he say that they tested all the bottled water in Trinidad and some of the biggest brands had feces in the water?
Yes, there's something about that. But in terms of doubles,
Like tap water. What's the difference?
I didn't hear that.
Gus, I didn't hear that.
I said they test them in America and the same like tap water is the same. It's tap water they selling you.
Yes, but that is a big hoax. That whole bottled water is a hoax
And tap
campaign.
water in plastic, which is more dangerous.
I don't drink bottled water, plastic water,
Singapore's
but
water quality is better than our bottled water quality. We're not ashamed, boy. That is a country that got independence the same time as us. They have no oil, they have no
so
gas, and they are
so
first world developed country.
So doubles, like all street foods, the vendors have a food badge, but they are not inspected. Their preparation procedures and the hygiene of where they produce their food is not inspected. So the rationale of closing down street food from a hygiene and public safety point of view, I support.
Wait,
However,
wait,
however,
before you say however, you both keep saying you have to blame the government if the system not working because we have to have systems in. You said that people require a license. So we didn't have to wait on a pandemic. We could have said that every doubles vendor in the country should have a doubles license that says that this food is prepared at X location and X location is inspected regularly. None of that is rocket science. So why aren't we doing those things?
why aren't we? Exactly. And then to come and close doubles vendors without explaining to the nation the reasoning behind closing street food, that defies logic. It shows a certain level of arrogance, and so the whiplash that they got, they deserved. But even though now that they've closed KFC and Rituals and everybody else, they still haven't come out and said any clear rationale as to why they closed doubles in the first instance. So I just want to say that when you are in a leadership role, you have a responsibility to be calm, clear, and thorough. And in this instance, the government were calm and clear, but not thorough. They didn't explain anything. They just came out and they said it, and they give
And
the
you have to be
explanation.
transparent. You have to be
Yeah,
transparent. You have to take the people into your confidence, and tell them exactly what is happening. We are not fools. If you take us for fools, you become the fool, and we become smarter than you.
The people feel safe. We didn't know the people felt safe. Now that we know the people feel safe, we will cancel the contract. He take us for fools.
right.
I think Xiao should resign. I think out of decency he should resign. In any other country, you make a decision 24 hours, you reverse your decision. You have to own up that your responsibility and resign.
George W. Bush, in a video that is making the rounds now, ironically, about preparation for virus pandemics that he was talking about that then, he opened with this statement. Leaders have a responsibility to prepare for problems long before they appear.
Yes.
My
But we
number
need
one
problem.
problem with the government has handled this entire COVID-19 coronavirus is besides the fact that we knew it was coming, besides that fact, it looked like we've done no models. Because I was there when there was a National Operations Center. And if you talk to Gary Griffith, he will tell you the National Operations Center was set up so that all the different systems, health, security, everything could work together in one place that could establish protocols, and they could have done models for things like this. It seems that we really just making it up as we go along. We do, you feel
I
the
want to
people
ask a
not safe,
question.
give 4 contracts.
I want to ask a question. I am not advocating any more restrictions than what we have. The question I'm asking, why didn't back up those restrictions with a state of emergency to protect us and protect themselves, the government, from lawsuits and so on? Why didn't they?
Because, Gus, it is my view now that we have two things happening simultaneously: coronavirus and a looting at the
And
top.
what?
And
What's the second one?
a looting up at the top. That $10 billion or how much ever that came out of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, where is the transparency in what that money was for? You said that you needed that money to deal with issues surrounding coronavirus. And in your next breath, you spend $50 million on hotel rooms in Tobago that we don't need. A week later, you pick up $10 million and you fling it at the Baptists trying to buy 25 votes, and you want to build them a Baptist cathedral. If tomorrow they had a meeting at Panorama, they might get $100 million to build a PAN headquarters. They are using coronavirus and access to public funds for naked politicking, trying to get themselves back into government. And I want to tell you something. They may have been getting away with that for the first 2 weeks, but yesterday, their mask slipped, and Trinidad saw the beast behind the PNM that's operating in this country. And this is not about politics, eh? But you can't tell me that your Minister of National Security, without any real information at all, with just a feeling, pick up public funds and give out contracts at $87,000 a patrol without doing any due diligence as to why this is being done, no explanation as to why you're not using the national security apparatus that costs us $9 billion a year and half of it lying idle. No plan, no policy, no tender, nothing transparent. You can't tell me that this is government. Trinidadians saw it for what it was, and Trinidadians stood up. And the government never expected that the people would stand up as one. We united in the last 24 hours over those 4 security contracts, and the government blinked.
Another thing, isn't it a shame that the commissioner of police saying that he get what the government decisions from the newspapers, he watched the press conference to know what needs to be done, what to do? Isn't that a shame?
Because if you
The
say that's a
commissioner should
shame,
be on that
if you say
podium with
that's a
them.
shame, I want to tell you what's another shame. When the secretary of the Prison Officers Association spoke about the first time that justice on time prisoner transport contract presented itself to him, he said they were not consulted, they were not in the loop, and it came like a thief in the night, something that they did not need. And that continued for decades. So this is
Well,
why.
Philip, I have good news for you there. Now they say the technology is you could keep the prisoner on site, just like we're doing here, and you have the trial. You have the judge in one place, and you have the prisoner right there where he is.
But I had the
Isn't
commissioner
it
of
here?
prison on.
The technology
I
we're practicing now, they can
we
practice.
But they've been in that court 12 years now. The commissioner of prison said so. And the secretary general, I had them on a panel discussion, and Satish could send you that show, and you wouldn't believe some of the things they had to admit.
You know,
Gary Aboud, but
Philip, sometimes some of the lessons I've learned in life, I've learned when the speakers are the most leisurely of speakers. And somehow, maybe if we could find another way to communicate to larger audiences in a calmest possible way, that we will be able to get our message to stick. Why I'm saying this is because I always get very heated. I'm nervous before a show. I'm very a shy person generally, so even though you don't think so, when I go in front of the public, I'm intimidated by it and I get all worked up. It takes me a while to calm down. But at the end of it, I ask myself, how much does the audience remember? So if it were that I had the opportunity to get the audience to remember 3 things today, the first one, how much I love Gassan's new haircut. That is one of the 3 things. The second thing is that
I think that's one of
I
the
think
takeaways of the show. Gus haircut. I think that's a
I,
takeaway.
I think I think the government have a duty to listen to all the small things that we are saying and to give us reasonable responses. And small things like the idea of a special planning committee to advise the nation on the future economy, the future health and well-being of the country, to have a special committee to advise the nation about the importance of eating well, about general health in terms of protecting ourselves from the future, have a special committee to advise the government on the deferral of all interest on loans and mortgages, and the deferral of all government rents, or 75% or greater percentage. All of these small little things that we are asking the government to consider. But the third thing I want to put forward here today, I'm saying it because it came up today in a different way when Gassan mentioned it and when you mentioned it. But there was a presentation that I heard, and it's a conflict of interest because it was a presentation made by my elder brother Gregory. where he was invited to speak about the TED, about a subject that you touched on, Philip, when you said that the successful people must have a conscience for those who don't have food. And so he was invited to speak at the TED, but the TED talk. But the one point that he made at the end of it that really resonated for me, that is, to me, was the essence of the whole thing, and I would like to encourage your listeners to listen to it, was the importance and the critical need of constitutional reform to stop this political, not his words, but um, this, my words, democratic dictatorship, where we are locked out for the 5 years of a ruler's term and where they can fire and hire and do whatever they want. And the procurement fiasco that's taking place with that procurement legislation. I have seen 5 governments come and go into that parliament and that bill be dragged through, just like several other bills. And once I wrote a paper that every time you have an election, all of the progressive legislation comes before the parliament and they make a big impression. We are for the people. Look at the legislation we're bringing. But it all goes into committees and none of it gets passed. And whatever gets passed, it's so raw because the senators don't have a staff to study it, and there's not sufficient debate on all the angles, and they're normally full of so many deficiencies that nothing gets passed on time. If it does, it's improper legislation. So, so I hope you listen to this. His name is Gregory Aboud, and he spoke at the TEDx, and he gave a presentation that really stuck to me about so that
Imagine that.
Just
Imagine the
imagine.
kind of people we
well, I
have in
forgive him.
Congress.
I forgive him. I
No,
made peace
you
with
can
him.
forgive him, but look what he no, forget what he is. That the word, is the thinking of somebody who gives so much to this country. You turn
Contempt
around, you're the prime minister, and describe him in that manner. Of course, you
is
forgive
the
him. You have to
contempt
forgive him. You have no choice
of
but
this
to forgive.
agreement. That's him. He is an arrogant man, and that is contempt for anybody who dares to offer a competing opinion to yours. And that is why, as Prime
And
Minister, he walked.
I think they have sent that message over the years. Now anybody oppose them, I'm on Facebook and I experience it every day. Anybody oppose what they say, you're not patriotic. You don't love the country. You're not a true Trini. They have that kind of thing all the time. You cannot oppose them. You're not supposed to oppose anything they say.
Because they become raging
You're not supposed to
bulls.
have a different opinion.
All right, fellas, we gotta do some closing comments now. Take as much time as you
Well,
need.
what I want to ask you, Philip, is what would your proposal be? Let us presume that you are in Parliament 6 months from now, and you have a majority. What would your proposal be for constitutional reform and a time frame if you were sitting in government in the Prime Minister's office?
You know what's amazing? I was actually going to ask both of you that same question. So I'm glad that you asked it to me. Because the Progressive Empowerment Party, no, seriously, we've been saying since the start that our first act would be to convene Parliament and write recall into law. And we're not coming out of the Parliament till recall is ready to be proclaimed. And that's the first act. So that 100 days, people don't know what this 100 days thing is. You have to give a government 100 days. And some people refer to it in America as a honeymoon. It's not a honeymoon, It's 100 days to get everything in a gear so you could start to put your policies and programs in place so that people could start feeling it in their lives from the bottom up. After the 100 days, if you realize that we there to stunt and perform and feather and underperform and feather our nest, you could begin the process of recalling each and every member of parliament from that parliament. What you said earlier about that 5-year dictatorship, that is an absolute fact. And until we are able to fire them in midstream, they will never have to pay mind to us. If this was 2.5 years into this government's term, with these 4 contracts, You think they're taking us on and canceling contracts? They take us on for nothing. They're only doing this now because this is an election year and we hold them down over this COVID-19 thing. And they've been trying to flip the script and make it look like they're competent. After 4.5 years of incompetent and a ruined economy, and we lost Petrotrin and crime higher than ever, the most important of any kind of reform of our constitution is recall legislation that allows the population who voted the government into office to fire them.
But I hope you also have referendum
Absolutely.
mechanisms in the.
Absolutely.
I,
Absolutely.
I
You
want to.
asked me what was the most important, and that's why I was telling you recall. Referendum, campaign finance reform. And when I talk about campaign finance reform, we talk about pinning it to the candidate. When you listen to a campaign in America and you hear, I am George Herbert Walker Bush and I approve this message, what it means is that is coming out of the official budget of that candidate. And anything that doesn't have that message attached, if a media house runs the ad, they risk losing their license. You understand that? The person who runs the ad would be in trouble. There is a budget and you stick to the budget. And if you cross the budget, you will disqualify the candidate. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars on campaigns to distract the population from the actual issues that need to be discussed. Trinidadians need to face the fact that we've built a water management system in Trinidad and Tobago that catches the bounty of fresh rainwater in the hills and washes it out to the sea. So 6 months out of the year we have flood, and 6 months out of the year we have drought. We don't manage the water, we chase it away. These are things that need to fix. You're not going to fix it until the population is given the opportunity to have a say in what the government does.
Well, every
What
time you
I want
talk
to say
about
is that
water, if I may finish, every time you talk about water, you get me upset because I follow the expenditure of WASA, and WASA have spent over $10 billion in the past 20 years buying water from Desalcott. And Desalcott was built on a 200 million US dollar budget. So Desalcott was built at $1.2 billion. They don't buy raw materials. The water, the seawater that they use, they take for free, and their sales are 10 billion. Look at the profitability, a completely computerized environment. But we are throwing away the equivalent of what we buy every year. We throw away in one river on the East Coast every year.
Diego
Wash into the
Martin,
sea.
boss, Diego Martin is the wettest place in Trinidad. The Chaguaramas Aquifer is such high quality water that they test that water and use that as the measure for the Caribbean. We in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a system that is set up to fail deliberately to facilitate other people making money. Every tank, every water tank, every water pump, every bottled water sold in this country is an admission of failure of 57 years of government.
Well, worse than that, according to the Regulated Industries Commission 5-year study on WASA, WASA pays 5 times more for labor than the average paid in the world. They have 5 times more persons than the average number of persons based on the delivery of water that WASA delivers. So they're overstaffed. They waste 50% of all the water that they harvest.
Remove the word WASA, put Petrotrin, remove Petrotrin, put TCL, remove
T and Tech,
TCL,
all of them, all of them.
Tech. The same problem. It is politicizing the system. It is using the system as a gravy train. Today, the government gave out hampers, COVID-19 hampers, paid for with treasury dollars in PNM banks. That is misbehavior in public office. You cannot use public funds to politic. Who do I tell that
You
to,
ask,
Gus? Who do I tell that to? Who? Who do I go to with that? The Integrity Commission? Do I do like Kirkwaite and write letter after letter after letter that goes out in the media and people say, right, look, a letter was written and then what?
But Philip, the question Gary asked you, if you become the government and you're in parliament, the question I want to ask, how are you going to get there? There is a choiceless democracy in Trinidad, and there's a monopoly. How are you going to break that monopoly? How are you going to break through that monopoly? It is almost impossible.
Gus, I want to tell you, we have the same numbers that you had and Gary has going in. All right? And I want to tell you, there's about 40% of the population of Trinidad and Tobago that is not involved in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago. And our mission was to get them excited for politics again, to get them excited for the country again, to make sure that those people could never say that they didn't have options. So we wanted to do that. That is why I will never stop trying to get men like you and Gary into the Progressive Empowerment Party. We need all the brightest minds. We need all the best people rowing in the same direction so Trinidadians could know that, look, we have a real viable option. For once in my life, I'm not voting race. For once in my life, I'm not voting tribe. I am voting for people who I think could fix my country so I could age properly and go to my rest in my country without having to run away to a next man land to access public health, that my children could grow up in safety. I hope that we could appeal to them. I even hope, and I tell them here, I even hope we could appeal to the people who trapped in that same revolving door, diehard sycophant system. I think that because of social media, because these people have access to information, they might want better for themselves and their children. I hope they take a chance because that's the best we could hope for.
No, I wish you the best. Uh, I don't know. Let's hope that we get out of this COVID, and after COVID, we get out of the financial dire that we are in. We really be in dire straits as far as the economy is concerned. We don't know what the future holds for us. I experienced 1990. I lost my whole business 100%. Honestly, these days, 1990 come into my mind every day. I am seeing 1990. I am hoping that it will not be, but unless this government, as that's what Philip, what Gary said, that they bring some the bright minds, the economists together to work out a stimulus package, some kind of thing to get us out of the really the a bad situation we are in, be in for trouble.
Because we know the country costs $5 billion a month to run. That's the budget.
Yes.
Simple. That pregnant with corruption, 50% of that is theft. But we know if you have to find money to throw into the system to say you're going to operate it, $5 billion is what you need. And you redirect management funds to credit. And there are other ways you could do that. The government has the power of the treasury where they could turn off the requirements from you. Central bank could adjust rates so that they could make it feasible and possible, but the government could inject capital into industry and get industry going again. We have no choice. If we don't turn the economy back on, what are we going to do? All of us going to line up for grants? Give me some closing comments now. I'll start with you guys. Take as long as you need.
Well, people listen to your program because the last time I'm looking at my old notes, we had said that there was an urgent need for an implementation of a social assistance program for affected citizens. And today we have some kind of social assistance where they're offering some certain amount of grants. But I don't think it's working. And what I'm saying that we need is more direct, immediate, hands-on response to deal with the banks, to deal with landlords who are extracting revenues from the government, and landlords who are extracting rents from citizens who are currently unemployed. Now, what Ghassan has said with his tenants, I think it's honorable and good. I know of other landlords that have written tenants and told them only pay 50% of April. But how can they pay 50% if they're shut down? How can they pay May? And even if you restart in May, the future of business is going to be in jeopardy in this country. A lot of small businesses that are borderline businesses are not going to find it easy to come through this COVID disaster because after the COVID restrictions are lifted, consumerism and public movement is never going to be the same in our life. We need to start planning now. Carnival, carnival fetes, Old Mass and Juve and everything that we have in our mind as to how we celebrate Christmas, everything is going to change. There's no turning back from this point that we're heading into. And although we want to rest on the laurels that perhaps we are a warmer country, in my experience in my life, with a common cold, the virus mutates. And we don't know in which direction this virus will mutate. It's just like the mosquito. Remember, we had the dengue, and then we got another one with the same
Chikungunya.
Aedes
Chikungunya.
chikungunya. Right.
No, but this COVID-19 is SARS 2, you know. This is a mutated SARS coronavirus. That's what this is. SARS, MERS, COVID-19, same virus mutated, you know.
Listen, it killed 2,000 people in one day in America, the country with what I consider to be the most developed medical infrastructure on the planet.
Can't
And
say that.
2,000.
You can't say that because Germany has 113,000 cases, Italy has 139, France have 112. But France lost 10,800 people. Italy lost 17,669 people. But Germany only lost 2. And all of those countries are in the same temperate zone. And I always quote Anthony Robbins when he says, success leaves clues. Go to the people who are doing it right and see what they are doing and copy them. Germany did something right that the rest of the world should be paying attention to. But this virus we have information and data now. This virus is predominant in temperate climates because it likes the cold. Heat, it has a lipid layer, fat layer. That's what it is. It's not a living organism, it's a virus. And if you break that fat layer, it dies. That's why soap and heat are the two best things against coronavirus.
The second thing I want to close with saying is that I'm calling on Colum Imbert, because this is a man who has been through government over and over and over. And I'm calling on the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, to come forward and give the nation a certain level of confidence that they are not mismanaging the funds that we the people, have saved. Government after government after government after government. For 4 governments, we have saved, and all we have is $6 billion US dollars. That's it. And they have withdrawn 25% of our lifetime savings in one swoop. What guarantees do we have? What transparency do we have of how that money is spending? We still don't have the procurement legislation. After 20 years, I went to special select committee meetings where I was invited 15 and 18 years ago to come and discuss procurement legislation because we had written about it 20 years ago. And still we don't have it. So what guarantee do we have that they're not squandering away our savings? And the Minister of Finance is putting up a multi-million dollar building around the savannah. God bless him. But what is he doing with our money? What guarantees do we have that our money is not trickling down into the wrong place to help people with big financial burdens? What guarantees do we have? And the Prime Minister cannot sit back in a nice suit and Gassan's pretty haircut and say nothing. He has a responsibility to report to us on this because this is our life savings. That's my closing statement.
Yeah,
Excellent,
I want to
Gary.
close by saying that, I want to dream that this country is shut down, really, we are on pause. I am hoping that it is to reset and reboot because we really need to reset and reboot this country. I believe the key to that is for who they are the government and they will be in the government for the rest of the year, whatever. They need to dialogue with the people to find out what's going on, what needs to be done. Don't do decisions arbitrarily on your own. Please consult with the people before you take your decisions. And let's see if we could, as we are all of us in this together, let us see if we could get out of all of this together. Good night.
Well said. Thank you, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure. I want to tell you something. I look forward. I look forward to the intellectual sparring when you all are on the show. Yes, when I'm done, I'll be tired. I go and drink my cup of tea and listen to some music and calm my brain because it's been hard work. I really appreciate and both of you answered the call on such short notice. Thanks very much, guys, for being such patriots and good people. It's my pleasure to know you. Thanks a lot for being guests tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love to all. Good night. Love.
Trinidad and Tobago, first of all, we address this linking 1% and Syrians. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. No, no race, all the people bad. No, you can't tell me all the African people bad, all the Indian people bad, all the Chinese people bad. So don't tell me all the Syrian people bad. Stop that. I know that you have anger for those who have taken advantage of this country. I get that. I have that anger too. But it is not fair to the good and decent people that we paint them with this brush or that we make their lives miserable and we take away from their own self-respect and self-worth because we're too lazy to find a way to address this better, and we need to find a way to address this better. And one of those ways is to put the Progressive Empowerment Party into office, because I want to tell you something. At that point, all of those who did wrong to this country, who betrayed the public trust, who stole from the public treasury, you will know their name, you will know their length, you will know their measure, you will know the action that is being taken to recover the public funds, and if possible, where possible, bring them to justice and make them feel the full brunt of the law. But please, when you see other people talk the shit, leave them with the shit. I want to tell you something. That's why I took such a hard line with Susie Hadid and that post. Whether it's a new post or old post, don't tell me about the 1% and the 99% and who do what for this country. I know who built this country. I in town long time. If you listen to me, you know. I know Trinidad and Tobago. I know the history of Trinidad and Tobago since we Kiriani and Alubera. I know what took place in my land. Okay? And there are people who have done wrong, and we can't whitewash that, and we can't pretend that that did not happen. So let us stop the attacks on each other and slow our roll right now, because the second part of this show, we was talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. And while it looks like Trinidad and Tobago is coming out of it now, we need to pull together now more than ever. More than ever. And it's hard to say this because I, like you, my blood close to my skin. And when you say I vex, I vex. And I want justice. But right now, the biggest job is to get Trinidad and Tobago back to functional. Let us get this economy back up and running. Let's get all our people working. Let's get Trinidad bubbling. Let's get to a place where we take care of the needs so we can address the wants. Thank all of you who joined us today. Thank all of you who stayed with us for the show. Thank all the good and decent people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is because of you we do this. There is a small minority of criminals in this country at the top and at the bottom. And those minority criminals, we could deal with them when we vote into office a government not connected to any type of criminal. Between now and then, we have a duty to ourselves to pull together as one people under one flag and to build the Trinidad and Tobago that we always knew it could be. Until tomorrow, stay safe, Trinidad and Tobago.